Hey guys! Okay, I don't know why my lighting is being so bad right now, but it's like my light is making me so blown out. I wanted to finish off this vlog with a little Q&A. I asked for some questions from y'all on my Instagram story and I got some answers, so I just thought I would throw them in here because we got some really good ones. So just starting out, the very first one is from Addie, and she says, I feel stuck in my calorie deficit without results. What am I doing wrong? This one is a really loaded question that I get all the time as a weight loss coach. Really, when you're looking at what you're doing wrong in a calorie deficit, there's a lot of things it could be, and I wouldn't know exactly without taking a look at it, but I would say the most common ones are either one, you're not tracking accurately or consistently enough. That means you're using a food scale, you're weighing everything out, you're tracking like 7 days a week, you don't have really bad habits on the weekends that are overtaking all of the calorie deficit work that you're putting in on the weekdays, because that can totally happen. Another one is that you aren't eating the right amount of calories for your body. So if like you're using a calculator online to tell you your deficit, a lot of times those highly overestimate how many calories you need to eat to be able to lose weight based on your activity levels. A lot of times whenever people tell me they've been eating in a calorie deficit forever and not seeing progress, a lot of it has to do with maybe they've been eating 250 calories too many. So instead of a deep calorie deficit, they're in a slight calorie deficit, which takes a lot longer to see progress with. So then you feel like you aren't in a deficit when you are. Or another one would be, just like I mentioned at the first hand, if you do have your calorie number calculated correctly and you're logging very accurately with the food scale, you're just not being consistent enough. What that looks like is maybe you're consistent 4 days out of the week and then 3 days you're eating healthy but you're not tracking. It's easy to undo the deficit work that you put in if you aren't really particular, especially with like tracking your meals whenever you're eating out and knowing the calorie count that is going into your body. So those would be kind of the biggest 3 mistakes that I see beginners make. It really always depends obviously on the person as well, so there's really no way that I could be able to tell you what was wrong without seeing your specific data. Next question, we have someone asked fat loss / looking leaner. So I'm guessing this is just like fitness advice on how to get leaner with fat loss. Basically my biggest advice for this is you need to be strength training in a calorie deficit and prioritizing protein. Those are the 3 pillars of being able to get lean. When we think lean, we don't want to only focus on fat loss, right? Because when we do that, it can be to the point where you're also losing muscle in the process. And you might get skinnier, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to feel lean, like you have muscle definition, that toned look that everybody wants. You need to maintain as much muscle mass as possible in that process. And the way that you maintain that muscle mass is by eating high protein. I usually shoot for like 1.4 times my body weight in kilograms for grams in protein intake per day. That's more than enough to be able to maintain all of your muscle mass. And if you're in a calorie deficit and you're starting strength training for the first time, then it's really important to eat enough protein, because when you do those 3 things, you're gonna be able to put on muscle in a calorie deficit as well, which is something that you really can only do as a beginner. And so when you take advantage of that, you're just gonna get to the lean physique that you want the fastest. We also have one, why is there so many fitness trainers out there that say a calorie deficit isn't needed for a cutoff? I think she meant for fat loss or weight loss. I have no idea. This will always blow my mind. A calorie deficit 100% is necessary for fat loss. You cannot lose fat any other way. If you're losing fat on an animal-based diet, it's because it's putting you in a calorie deficit. If you're losing fat in keto, it's because it's putting you in a calorie deficit. If you're losing fat through intermittent fasting, it's because it's putting you in a calorie deficit. And all those things are great if they're helping you maintain a calorie deficit, sure. You can also get the same exact result with eating what you want in moderation and tracking your calories and being a lot more flexible with your lifestyle than having rigid dietary restrictions that are hard to maintain over time. A lot of trainers, I think, say that women need to reverse diet before they go into a calorie deficit, which just isn't true in most circumstances. The reason I usually never put my clients through a reverse diet when they first start with me is because most of the time people come in thinking like, oh, I've been eating 1,200 calories and not losing weight, when in reality the problem lies with accurate tracking. And if you needed to reverse diet, you would have already lost a bunch of weight in the process. So people who need to reverse diet are going to be people who, for example, have lost a large amount of weight and have hit a really strong plateau and can't get past it. Say you've lost like 80 to 100 pounds in a calorie deficit, right? When you get to that point, yeah, it can be harder. Maybe a reverse diet or a maintenance break is helpful for your metabolism before going back into a deficit so that you don't have to keep dropping your calories lower. Or somebody who maybe has chronically dieted and has lost a lot of weight and their metabolism is really slow. Most of the time, this just isn't true. Like, if you need to reverse diet, it's gonna be post weight loss, not before you see results with a calorie deficit, because chances are, I mean, like, you probably are eating in at least a caloric maintenance, even a caloric surplus on most days, for you to be in the state that you're at now where you're not losing weight. So I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. And any trainer who's telling you that you don't need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, literally run for your life, because that is the biggest red flag I've ever seen in my life, and they do not know what they're talking about. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I took a little bagel eating break. Back to the questions. The next one is, how do I stay in my deficit with social influence and peer pressure? Okay, this is a question I get from my clients a lot, and the biggest thing I would say is you have to be so sure and loud about your goals that you aren't willing to sacrifice your goals and what you want just to appease other people. And what I mean by this is, like, mostly the people who aren't supporting you, who are saying negative comments, who are peer pressuring you or just giving you a bunch of crap about what you want, most likely, I mean, if it's little comments here and there and they're just joking with you, that's kind of easy to blow off and be like, haha, like, yeah, whatever, and then do your thing, right? But if it's people who are actually giving you a really hard time about your goals and what you have to do to accomplish them, I just can't imagine doing that to someone that I genuinely cared about their happiness. And it's either unintentional and they don't realize exactly the pressure that they're putting on you, or it's intentional because they're mad that they aren't doing the same thing. And a lot of times this is what it comes down to. It's when people aren't putting their health and fitness first, they aren't striving to be better in areas of their life, or they're feeling insecure that you're successful and they're watching you do it and they're not. People can be very jealous, and because of that jealousy, will try to stop you from reaching your goals so that they can feel better about their position and where they're at. So I think that you can kind of tell the difference between those people in your life and which one is which. The second one, I would say that that's an indicator to you that they don't need to be in your life anyways, because if people are going to be so negative to you about something that you really, really want, that's like me peer pressuring my friend not to study for the MCAT when I know that their biggest dream in life is to become a doctor. When you know that somebody you are close to and you care about cares about something genuinely, you're not going to give them pressure about something that literally doesn't affect you to hinder their success, if that makes sense. Number one, I would say figure out who in your life is unintentionally doing this, and then figure out the people who are doing it out of jealousy, and cut those people out, girl, or have a talk with them, because you don't need to be surrounded by people who aren't taking your goals seriously. Some people, if they don't know how serious you are, you just have to be vocal about it. You can't be scared to tell people how important it is to you. And I know that's scary sometimes, but you're gonna have to be adamant about what you want. And if that means like bring your meal prep to a party, or if that means that you order your salads with no dressing, or you don't order the mimosas at brunch, they can still do those things. Just because you're saying no to them or you're abstaining, it doesn't mean that they can't do them, right? And so I would just be really open and be like, hey, I would really appreciate it if you didn't give me so much crap or pressure to do these things, just because I have these really, really big goals I'm setting for myself, and I really want to, you know, start living a healthier lifestyle and being healthier all around, because it makes me feel better and it makes me feel good. And I have these fitness goals that I want to achieve that I'm putting a lot of work and time and effort into. Totally, like, let me know if you want to do something in advance so I can kind of work it into my day, if you want to drink or if you want to go to certain restaurants or something like that. But also, if I kind of bring it up that it's not something that I can necessarily do that day, then just maybe don't give me so much crap for it, because it's already really hard to stay disciplined on my end. And so whenever you like feed into that, it's even harder to not give into peer pressure, and it's really important to me. So those are my goals, and that's where I'm at, and that's why I'm doing this. And if you're open and you communicate that with them and they know how much it means to you and they're still doing it, bah. Most of your friends, if they're your friends, they're gonna understand and they're gonna want to see you succeed. It doesn't have to be something that's scary, but I'll always say be loud about your goals so that people know what you're striving towards, and it also helps keep you accountable to doing the things that you know you need to do to get there, because you want people to see you succeed too and be proud of you. And everything else, I would say, like, work these events into your lifestyle so that you can still experience them while you're in a calorie deficit. If your friends want to go out and go get drinks on Friday night, pre-log that stuff into your day so that on Friday you can be smart about your choices that you're making at the beginning of the day, so that you can experience stuff with them. I also wouldn't let your weight loss journey become such a dominant force in your life that you're not spending time with the people that you love, because it should never be as important as the people you love, experiences in life. You can do both, and that's what is important to know. You can't put your life on hold for that. You can do both. Just be smart about it. Pre-plan your day. Eat things in moderation. Don't go 0 to 100 with your calorie deficit. Make smart decisions at restaurants and you'll be fine. Okay, next, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? I haven't, just because I am already so busy with all the content that I make right now, like TikTok, and I just recently picked up this YouTube channel, and so this is also taking up more time. I don't think that I would ever start a podcast, just because I feel like I do podcasty stuff on my YouTube channel. I couldn't have a podcast without a co-host, because I don't like listening to one person podcasts. Like, besides like Madeline RG, I don't really listen to any other one person podcasts, because I like banter and conversation. I think it would be fun, maybe eventually, if my platform's big enough to where I can expand and have more time for that, that would be awesome. But right now, the majority of my week definitely goes into my client work and running my coaching program, which I'm gonna link below this video in case you're interested in nutrition and fitness coaching for weight loss. You can apply through the application link below, and then I'll reach out to you and we can chat around how the program works and options and that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think I would do a podcast. I enjoy filming content a lot more. If anything, I would really want to expand my content into like lifestyle content as well. But I also battle with that of like, people follow me because I'm a weight loss coach and because I'm giving insight into how to get to their fitness goals. And so I just don't think that they would really care to see much about lifestyle. Another one, why do I keep overeating when I eat out? This is a hard one. You have to know yourself and your relationship with food. But a lot of times I see people struggle with this and overeating when eating out in general, because you're going into eating out, especially at places where you don't know the nutrition facts and you can't track calories accurately or as perfectly accurately as you would if you were eating at home, because you're allowing yourself the opportunity to not track calories in that instance. Then it's like, okay, I'm gonna be tracking calories for weeks or months after this. So because this is the only instance where I'm out of sight, out of mind about calories and I don't know the calories I'm intaking, I'm gonna overeat or I'm gonna get stuck in a binge. And I'm gonna use it as an excuse to shove all this endless food into one day because I don't know the calorie content in it and I wanna be blind to it. This is a bad mindset to be in, because a calorie deficit doesn't work because you're putting things into an app. A calorie deficit works because you're eating less than what your body needs, and so it has to pull from your fat storage. And that process happens regardless if you know the number that day or not. This is how people lose weight unintentionally, for example. If they're not tracking calories, but they're just accidentally under eating and losing weight, that's why people lose weight, for example, when they lose their appetite, when they go through hard circumstances or heartbreaks or whatever, because they're under eating, therefore means they're in a calorie deficit. And even if it's an unintentional calorie deficit, still a calorie deficit. So when you go out, even if you can't track calories perfectly, you really want to put yourself in a position to where you're still knowing that you're taking the steps necessary to keep yourself as close to a calorie deficit as possible, right? So if you're not tracking calories, but you still want to stay in your calorie deficit, are we gonna pick the salmon with vegetables from Chili's, or are we gonna pick the triple dipper with extra ranch and barbecue coated chicken tenders and mozzarella sticks? It's an obvious choice. You know what you need to do. Even if you don't have the exact numbers, you know the things that are gonna keep you closer to that deficit, regardless of if you have the numbers or the nutrition facts or not. So really, it's about being intentional about your choices and knowing that your success isn't just coming from you putting calories in an app. Your success is coming from making the decisions that keep you in a calorie deficit, which can be done regardless if you're not able to track a certain dinner or something like that. Okay, another question we have: in a calorie deficit, can you eat back the calories you burn? Okay, so this is a really common misconception. When you're calculating your calories from a TDEE calculator or a deficit calculator online, and it asks you your activity level and it says how many times a week do you work out, and you make a selection and then it gives you the calories that you need to be eating, it is factoring in how many calories you are set to burn for those workouts already and letting you eat back the necessary amount that would still keep you in a deficit. If you put it in there, for example, and you get 1,500 calories as your answer, and you put that you work out 3 times a week, but then you go and work out those 3 times, you burn 400 calories and you eat all those calories back, that's 1,600 calories over what you're supposed to be eating to lose a pound per week. Therefore, you're only gonna be losing like 0.5 pounds per week at that rate, because you're eating back all of the calories that your body is burning from exercise. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that. It's gonna be a lot slower of a process with weight loss, not to mention you're probably eating more than you actually do burn, because calorie trackers like your Apple Watch or Ring, that kind of thing, definitely overestimate how many calories you actually burn with exercise. And so you're actually probably going and eating more than you burn if you eat back what it tells you. So definitely don't do that. It's something I make sure I tell all of my clients when they start. Should I lower my deficit after a binge? Absolutely not. This is something that so many people struggle with, and this is exactly what the binge restrict cycle is. You're binging, you're overeating, you feel guilty, you feel bad about it, you think you need to lower your calories, when in reality the amount that you lower your calories is barely going to make a difference. Because if you overeat 2,000 calories yesterday and then today you lower your calories by 500, you still overate by 1,500 calories yesterday. So doing that just isn't, it's not helpful, because what you're doing is pushing yourself into a cycle of restricting, which ultimately leads to a binge again. And so you're going to be a lot better off if you just eat normally, pretend like it never happened. That way your consistency actually happens for longer than it would if you were to restrict and then be pushed back into that cycle again. So it's all about preventing the cycle. If you do have a binge, you just need to forget about it. It's okay. We're all human, we do it, we make mistakes, and you're not expected to be perfect in this journey. But what we want to do is promote consistency long term, which happens by keeping you full and satisfied and not reacting with endless restriction if you do mess up. How many times a week do I work out? I work out about 6 times a week. I normally have 1 rest day. That rest day sometimes will still be a high step count. It just depends. But right now I'm training for a half marathon, which means I'm running 3 days a week. I have 2 shorter runs, which right now it increases every week with my program. But right now, like for example, this week on my program, it's 4 miles one day, strength train, 4 miles another day, strength train, and then my long run, 8 miles this weekend. So I'll have 2 shorter runs, 1 longer run on the weekend, and then 3 strength training days where I do 2 leg days and 1 upper body day. And then that last day out of the week is normally just like a higher step count. If I can hit 10K, I will. Yeah, and just recovery. So stretching and that kind of thing. So 6 days a week total I work out. How do you stay on track during that time of the month? Like, is it okay to up your calories? How much? It's kind of your own decision, right? So if you increase your calories during the week that you're on your period, and say you're eating at maintenance, and say 1,500 calories is your deficit, but because you're hungry on your period, you decide to eat 2,000 calories. That means that that week you're basically not going to lose anything. And as long as you're not going into a major surplus, honestly, it's fine. Is it going to set you back a little bit and cause your progress to happen a little slower? Yeah, because you're not in a deficit that week. If that keeps you consistent long term, and upping your calories to maintenance that week allows you to stay full and satisfied and easily transition back into your deficit so that your consistency is there month after month, that is so much more important than the fact that you're going to be in maintenance and not lose a pound that week. Now, I think it would honestly be better to still maintain your deficit if possible, and if you have to increase your calories, do it by like maybe 200 or so, because that's still putting you in a slight deficit, which means you're still going to be losing overall. I personally don't increase my calories during that time of the month. I just don't deal with like super intense cravings specifically during that time of the month. Sometimes I have cravings like every now and then in my regular life, like if I'm really craving sugar that day, or if I'm having an intense craving, like it doesn't necessarily revolve around my cycle. So I don't ever do that really, but I will have maintenance days when I need it, right, to stay successful. So like if I know I'm going out to eat twice in a day, or I'm traveling for a weekend, if I need, which right now I'm in maintenance anyways, but if I was in a weight loss phase, a lot of times I will let myself take maintenance breaks for certain things that are happening in my life. And if for you that means taking a maintenance break during your period, then you're still going to lose weight because you're putting your body in a deficit overall, as long as you're not going into an extreme surplus. But yeah, I'll let myself a lot of times like take a weekend at maintenance during my deficit, or just giving yourself a little mental break and a little flexibility for your life so that you maintain consistency overall is really important. She said, when and how did you start your journey with fitness? What made you decide to want to live a healthier lifestyle? My journey with fitness started basically right at the end of my freshman year. So I studied abroad spring semester of my freshman year. I went to Europe. And when I got home, that was like the first time that I ever took progress pictures, and I was like, something has to change, because I felt awful. I was really struggling with overeating a lot during the first semester of college, and not to mention drinking on top of that, and social events were just making it even worse. But I put on like 15 pounds freshman year of college, and I wasn't working out. I wasn't active. I was really busy with school, and I wasn't watching my diet at all. I was eating insane amounts of food and really unhealthy foods as well. So I would say, honestly, that's what really spiraled it, because I remember getting home and I took my first progress pictures in front of the mirror and I was just really open and vulnerable with myself, like completely naked, and I was like, this is horrible and I hate my body and I hate how I feel, and I made a change. And that's when I started, and now it was a process. It was an uphill battle. It was not a linear journey. But as soon as I started getting active again, literally since then, I made that decision. I have not went, that was 2019. I literally haven't went more than a week for vacation. Like, I've had beach vacations and stuff where I haven't worked out, but I honestly haven't gone more than a week without working out. That's how much of a healthy lifestyle that I have literally just completely changed. I started tracking calories loosely back then, but I think it probably was like a year and a half, honestly, after COVID, until I got really serious about tracking calories and like meal prepping and that kind of thing. So my journey started with working out, made me feel a lot better, but I still had really bad diet habits, but it was kind of stopping me from gaining weight. So I was kind of just sitting where I was, not losing much weight, and kind of went through a small body recomposition where I was gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time, but it was a really, really slow process because I was not consistent with my nutrition at all. And if I could go back and do something, it definitely would be getting my diet in check way freaking sooner. I slowly started developing habits and getting better, and that's the thing, is you always need to define your journey by progress over perfection. And because I never gave up, I'm at the point where I am now, where I started counting calories more, I started being more consistent, I started drinking less, I started eating more protein, I started meal prepping. All of that spirals over time into you constantly wanting to become better, right? Now I'm in a place where I'm really happy with my body and I'm striving for performance goals, and I'm training for a half marathon, which is something I've never done in my life. I'm constantly setting new goals, and when you don't give up just because things aren't happening so quickly, you're gonna get there over time. If I would have given up because I wasn't losing weight within the first year of my fitness journey, because I wasn't taking my nutrition seriously and I just stopped working out, stopped trying to count calories, stopped taking any precautions at all or any progress in the right direction, and just gave up there, I would not be now a weight loss coach with a social media following, with this as my full-time job, with the body I'm really happy with. I wouldn't be any of those things. I think that shows you that you're always gonna keep progressing. As long as you don't give up, you're gonna be moving in the right direction. Even if it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, in 6 years, you're gonna be a million steps forward. The start of me wanting to live a healthier lifestyle was straight from how uncomfortable and unconfident I was in my body. I was very, very insecure, and that had a huge negative impact on my mental health. And honestly, the impact it had on my mental health is what really, really made me make that change, because I was like, I cannot keep feeling like this, and I cannot keep subjecting myself to the habits that are causing me to feel this way. I pitied myself for a long time, and then finally I got to the point where I was like, I got myself here, I have the power to get myself out, but I can't sit here and keep making excuses for myself and trying to make myself feel better when ultimately I know those excuses are only pushing me to feel worse. So yeah, it really was just a lack of confidence overall that made me want to start it, and I'm so glad I did, because it has completely transformed my life. Okay, I am back. We just got done traveling. We just got home a while ago, and I just wanted to kind of finish up this YouTube video and film the second part of my Q&A that I didn't get to do earlier. I got a lot more questions from y'all on my Instagram story, so there's a lot that I want to go over. So let's just dive right into it. One of the first ones I got was, have you ever struggled with binge eating? Also, how do I find my calorie deficit? 2 really good questions. I did struggle with binge eating once in my life. It probably was about a year where it felt very prevalent. Okay, I think that's better with lighting. Sorry if it's not the best. So I struggled with binge eating for about a year, I would say, for the first time in my life as a freshman in college. Nobody really knew about this, as is what happens with a lot of people who struggle with binge eating, is nobody in their life really knows that they're struggling with it, because it's normally a private habit, right? I would have binges on a lot of things: goldfish, Cheez-Its, snacky cracker type things, popcorn, pizza rolls, considered generally just like junk food or stuff that you would look and be like, that's really unhealthy for you. I never really had a problem with binging like healthy foods. I know a lot of people struggle with that, but for me, it was way more so on foods that I restricted heavily from when I wasn't binging. I would, sometimes in college, I just had a really unhealthy relationship with food at the time, because I was putting on weight like no other, because my habits with caloric intake, eating, drinking in college, like all of it just added up to put me in a huge calorie surplus, and I wasn't very active as far as working out. I was active in school and constantly busy, but I never prioritized time for the gym. And And so obviously that made it even worse, and was single-handedly one of the reasons that I put on a lot of weight. And when I started putting on a lot of weight, would then go into restriction mode where I was like, okay, I literally, you know, can't eat for a day and a half. I have an event where I have to be in a dress in 2 days, so I need to literally basically eat like crackers until then, right? Really unhealthy, really bad habits that then led to extreme indulgence because I had restricted for so long and I literally couldn't mentally handle it. I would say struggling with that is very common, and I have so many clients who come to me struggling with this as well, and you're not alone. Just know that. It is not something that you should ever feel ashamed of, but it is something you have to intentionally fight against, and you have to intentionally start building those habits where you say no and you break that cycle. I think that it's really, really helpful to break the cycle of restriction first, and even if you have a binge, not to follow it up with restrictive tendencies, because it's a lot easier, I would argue, to control restriction, to stop restricting, than it is to stop a binge. But I think that stopping restricting is the first step to stopping the urges to binge in general. So yes, I have struggled with it, and it took me a while to get out of those habits, but I definitely have now, and I'm very, very thankful of that. Volume eating, a high protein diet, counting my macros, those are all things that literally benefited me hugely when it came to having a healthy relationship with food. Finding your calorie deficit, I have a video pinned to the top of my TikTok page where I talk you through this, how to do it using a TDEE calculator online. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. That'll walk you through step by step on how to calculate your calorie deficit. Okay, next one is how to cope with binge eating and portion control. So I think honestly my biggest tip for doing this is start volume eating, and do it in a way where you are volume eating high protein whole foods so that you don't feel like you have to portion control all the time. I think a perfect balanced diet comes from volume eating high protein meals, whole nutrient dense foods the majority of the time when you're at home, when you're in your normal routine, and then using portion control as like a tool when you need it in certain circumstances. Like for example, when I go out with my family and I'm trying to stay within my calorie deficit, if I'm in a weight loss phase and I'm going to like an Italian pasta place, right? Order what you want. Maybe they don't have the healthiest options. You can use portion control as a tool there, but it doesn't have to be something that you do 24/7 every day during your diet. Because I think if you're using portion control as the main habit or main form of dieting to lose weight, it can be really, really hard to continue long term. So once you start learning the tools of like, okay, here's what my normal diet is gonna look like so that I can stay really full and satisfied all the time when I'm in my normal routine. And then maybe sometimes I have to portion control a little bit more when I'm outside of that routine, when I'm traveling, when things aren't in the ordinary, when I'm allowing myself some, you know, more calorically dense foods but still want to fit it in my weight loss journey. I think it's a really, really fair balance of both. But like I said earlier, like coping with binge eating really comes with being intentional about healing and fixing your mentality. The biggest thing that helped me whenever I was binge eating was I told myself, okay, maybe I can't make the decision right now to completely not binge eat to stop this binge, right? But I can make the decision to force myself to sit here for 15 minutes. I would set a 15-minute timer and I would sit on my couch and not let myself move and not let myself give into that urge of binging until that timer went off. And if that timer went off and I was still consumed with food noise and I was still wanting to binge or whatever, then I would do it. But if that timer went off and I wasn't having those feelings anymore, then it completely solved my issue. And I promise you, when I did that a multitude of times, there was maybe 1 or 2 times that I still felt like binging at the end of that 15-minute timer. And that's because when you allow yourself to sit and be intentional and think things actually through and act after you talk to yourself about, okay, what am I about to do? What are the consequences of this? Is it something I really want to do, or do I want to try to operate this in a healthier fashion? When you start talking yourself through that and you don't push those thoughts away and try to avoid them, you end up making the right decisions for you and you end up following through for yourself when you sit there and you're uncomfortable with your thoughts and you give yourself time just to reflect. Binging is mostly just acting on impulse and trying to push those thoughts that you know are positive ones. Mostly it's acting on impulse, right? And when you give yourself time to think through that, instead of just avoiding your thoughts, pushing them into the back of your brain and trying to deal with the consequences later, which is what happens when you binge eat, that's when you're going to be the most successful of stopping that pattern. So that's something that really helped me that I definitely recommend. Next one is, what is your favorite activewear brand? I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I could pick one activewear brand for the rest of my life to be able to wear, it would be Honor Active. I have always adored Chrissy Chella. She is a huge inspiration of mine. She's the CEO, founder or I think she's the creative director now, but she was the CEO and founder of Honor Active. Honor Active has long length for my long girls out there, and all of their leggings and all of their sweatpants. It's so inclusive. They have so many sizes. They have so many different fits, different colors. Like, their material and quality is top tier, and their pricing is very mid tier. Like, it's not super cheap, but it's not super expensive like an aloe or something like that. So I think it's very affordable and very, very much worth the money that they ask you to pay for the product, because I have bought Honor Active and there's not one single piece that I've like thrown away, given away, felt like it's like worn down. And I've had pieces from there for years. I mean, I literally bought the very first collection that they ever launched, which was their classic. Literally wear it 24/7. Definitely my favorite. And then my second favorite, I have a lot. I love Lulu, I love Gymshark, I love Aloe, and I love Set Active as well. My girl Avery, she asked me, I'm scared to start my own business. How did you do it? This was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And honestly, it was fate in my opinion. I started my business because when I got my first corporate job and got hired on, I actually, once I got hired on, they pushed my start date off 8 to 10 weeks or something like that. And when they did that, I had already signed a lease in a different city. I had already given up my job at the job that I worked at, and they had backfilled my position, and I had already put in my 2 weeks. Like, there was no going back. And so I had to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to support myself for 2 months? And because I quite literally had nothing to do with my time, and I was already a personal trainer in person, I was like, I want to do virtual training online. And I was planning on starting this business as like a side hustle that would carry me over until my corporate job, and then I could also do it on the side just for some extra coin while I was working corporate, until I started making more money because I had a sales position. Really, it was convenient for me to do at the time, right? I did not like my corporate job when I started it. I saw myself owning and running my own business because I loved it so much. I love building something from the ground up, having a huge goal that felt daunting that I could take steps in the right direction every single day to see success with. So I took a leap. I quit my corporate job even when my business was not thriving, and I was like, I'm going to put my all into this because it is so important to me. That's what I did. It is just risk. It is all mindset. Starting your own business is all mindset, because there is 100 million ways around everything. Like, you are so capable of building whatever life you want for yourself, and there's a million things that could work against you, of course, but it's so worth it in the end when you come out successful. I would say 100% the biggest tip I could give you is have somebody as your mentor. I hired a business consultant that had worked with multiple coaches to scale, you know, their clientele and build their platform, and I hired a coach to really help me. They knew what they were talking about, and they really pushed me in the right direction. Having somebody as a resource is 100% worth the money. Advice for postpartum women dealing with body image issues. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Obviously, I haven't ever been postpartum because I'm not a mom. But I think that when you're dealing with that, one, realizing that your body is a vessel of life, and it's so much more than what it looks like directly after you have a baby, right? But that's also not something where you have to feel hopeless, because you are totally in control of getting back to the point where you feel really confident in yourself if you're dealing with, you know, seeing your body change in a different way after you have a kid. I would say it all comes down to diet. Postpartum, I think strength training is so important to rebuild your core, but it's really no different than if you're dealing with body image issues before having a kid, right? Us as women know that all too well, whether you're a mom, whether you're not, whether you're postpartum, whether you're not. I know that seeing your body change out of your control is very difficult, but you also just need to fix your mindset around it and be like, okay, this change was inevitable. I gave life to a beautiful human. You can love yourself how you are and be thankful for what your body can do while striving to change things about it. Those two things can coexist. We always think about like, oh, if I'm trying to change my body, that means I hate it. That means that I don't love the skin that I'm in, and that is so untrue. Loving your body is why you're striving to make it better, right? Anything that we love, I love my business. I'm so thankful for where I'm at right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to push harder to see it grow, to see it improve, to see myself do better. So you can do those two things simultaneously, and I think it's so much easier to deal with how you're feeling in your body in the moment if you know and you're confident in the fact that you're taking steps to move it in the positive direction. Strength training, definitely find a form of exercise that you love that you can be very consistent with, and diet is everything, of course. Addie asks, can I body recomp / just lose body fat but not weight eating in maintenance calories? Absolutely. This is basically how you body recomp. Now, if you can body recomp is kind of a different story, because body recomposition tends to happen a lot more in beginners. So I went through a stage of body recomposition when I first started, but if I was wanting to recomp my body now after years and years years of strength training, it probably just wouldn't happen, or it would be a very, very slow process because I'm so far into my journey. When you're relatively new and you're relatively a beginner, I mean, even if you've been lifting for like, you know, a year or two, you absolutely can body recomp. And what that takes is, I would honestly eat in a slight calorie deficit if you're gonna do this, just so that you see changes more efficiently and you don't get discouraged. Eating at maintenance, you can body recomp for sure, and you probably will if you're new to lifting, but you're gonna get results quicker if you eat in a calorie deficit with high protein intake and you're lifting with the progressive overload strength training program. This is exactly what I do with a lot of my clients, and it kind of just depends on what stage that they're in with their body and their past and how they've trained before, if they are in more of a fat loss phase or if they are going through body recomp. 100% it is possible. You just need to focus on high protein in a slight calorie deficit. I would say maybe like if body recomp is your goal, I would shoot for like a 250 calorie deficit, and then take your measurements and make sure you're measuring yourself, make sure you're weighing yourself, make sure you have a way to track your progress, because it's a lot easier to stay consistent on something like a cut when you see numbers changing all the time. But if you don't have that form of progress, or you can't really see that with like progress pictures or something in body recomp, it can be harder to stay consistent. Sabrina asked, can you give us a makeup tutorial? Yes, I have done a makeup tutorial on my YouTube before, so you can scroll and find that video. Those are all of our questions from my Instagram girlies. Make sure you go follow me on Instagram if you haven't yet, if you're from TikTok or if you found me on YouTube. I love all of my YouTube girls so much, and I love, love, love long form content. I just don't obviously have as big of an audience over here because I'm trying to build this platform up from TikTok. So if you're here, thank you so much. It means the world to me that you want to see more of my life, you know, more of my routine and my advice to you on your fitness or weight loss journey or whatever you follow me for. I'm tagging all of my links below for all of my other platforms, and I'm also going to link my coaching application below for my permanent weight loss coaching program, where I work with all of my clients for weight loss coaching or body recomposition coaching, whatever your goals are. If that's something that you're interested in, you know, losing weight or changing your body, slimming down, losing fat in a really sustainable way that you can see yourself maintaining forever, then you 100% should check it out. Other than that, that wraps up this video of this little Q&A. Drop me some comments below too if there's any other videos that you would want to see on YouTube. I definitely want to be making videos that y'all are really interested in, so if anything comes to mind, leave it in the comments and I'll work on that this week. Other than that, I love you so, so much, and subscribe and like this video if you haven't yet. Bye.